All right, we are back talking about our score series. Last time we hit on strategy, which we're going to revisit at the top, just in case you missed the first one. But today, our primary topic is conversion, and this is why conversion is everything in the search economy, where the rubber meets the road, as I like to call it. David, welcome. Are you excited to talk about how we help get our clients more customers through conversions?
Always. I'm pumped. I think this is a cool thing to touch on as well. Most SEO firms don't really dive into conversion. I actually think a lot of them would argue that it's not something that they need to be responsible for, and we've definitely taken the a more unique but different approach to that. So I'm excited to dive in and use the podcast to expand on what we mean by conversion.
All right, I want to kind of reset by going back and talking about strategy from the top. Based on what we talked about last time, and I know, we recorded it a bit ago, so maybe we'll have to jog the memory. But what do you think the most important thing about strategy is for listeners to know before we go into this conversation about conversion?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing with strategy is I'll go back and use the road trip analogy. If you listen to the last episode, I used it a lot, but if you haven't, this will be fresh. Right. If you were about to go do a road trip, you never jump in the car and just start driving and hope that you ended up at the right destination. You'd probably ask, where am I going? How long do I have? Right. Where can I stop? You'd try and find all the information about the destination and how you're going to get there. And I oftentimes think with SEO, people don't really ever set the destination. They just start driving and they go and they go and they go and they go and they go. They could drive for 30, 40, 50 hours and still be upset with where they ended up because it wasn't actually the expectation of where they would be. So I think the biggest takeaway with strategy is set the endpoint, define what success looks like, define the types of customers you want to get in your business, set that as the ultimate goal, and then work backwards from there using SEO to find a repeatable way to really use Google to grow the business and to find those exact people.
So you kind of threw me a softball up at the beginning, and I don't want to just like whiff it. I feel like I got to toss it, got to like hit it back to you. But you said, like, when we were talking about conversion, you're like, yeah, most SEO companies don't address it. What do you mean by that? Because I feel like that's everything, right? We need what's happening to convert. Why do you think most?
I'll use an analogy that I think is really good. Let's say you own a brick and mortar store and you sell iced coffee. You own a coffee shop. That's exactly what that is. And you were so focused with getting people into the store that you kind of forget that people also have to pay you. So you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people come through every day, but like you've hid the register in the back corner and nobody knows where to go. So they just kind of like walk in, they look around and they walk out, right? You wouldn't deem that a success. You would be like, we're so close. Maybe we should put the cash register right in front of them so they know where to check out. We'll put the menu up on the board, right? Like coffee shops are an easy example of a place that gets the foot traffic for people coming in and they convert that foot traffic into a customer. If you bring that into the website and why I think we're unique about focusing that, as an SEO firm, we're obviously focused on getting traffic to your site. That's an obvious point. But what we're even more focused with is once that traffic gets to your site, what actions are they taking? Why, like, it's almost our equal responsibility to make sure that they convert on your site as well. We don't want to flood your coffee shop with a bunch of people and none of them check out. That's not a success. It's close. We're getting there, but it's not actually a success because people aren't converting to your preferred action. And we'll definitely get into that. But I think one of the biggest reasons SEO firms don't focus on is one, SEO is notorious for, I'm just going to send traffic to your site. Sure. But right, it needs to be the right type of traffic, the right type of visitors, but it also needs to be something or someone that converts. So understanding what they do next is, I think, our ultimate responsibility in that. But two, quite frankly, it's tough, right? The reason we're situated well to work on conversion is that we also sell websites. We've had a whole website team since the very beginning of the company. And it's really cool for us to lean into that and say, okay, we have these resources. Not only are we going to bring traffic to you, we're also going to make sure that traffic converts at a higher rate. And some really cool things happen whenever you can, let's say, increase traffic by 10% and increase conversion rate by 10%. You're in a pretty awesome spot as a company. And we've found a better system to bring traffic to your site and to convert that traffic as well.
So I think it'd be good for the audience to know that we're kind of going through this process, and I hate using this analogy, but I'm going to say it because it's the only one that can come to my mind right now. But we're trying to eat our own dog food at Pneuma. We're going through the process of taking the website, working with our team, and going through that. And I'm not like, I would have no interest in doing this if the outcome on the other side wasn't more conversion or increased conversion. I would imagine a lot of the clients that we've talked to over the course of the history of Pneuma, it'd be the same. I think one of the things is just setting expectations is really important. So I guess, like, how should we think about setting expectations regarding conversion, one? And then, like, also we talk about this almost in all these episodes, but time, like, how do we set the right expectations around, like, the time it takes for a conversion to start taking place?
Yeah, I think the first one is always good. People are like, "Oh, you're gonna help our site convert better." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, great. So should I expect 60% conversion? Not a chance, right?" Like, I think the funny thing with conversion is that you play with such small numbers. But also, right, that number changes based on industry. And like, that's not probably the point of where we need to dive into today. But some sites, a great conversion rate could be 1%. Other sites, an average conversion rate could be 5%, right? It all depends on the industry and what you're selling. But at the end of the day, our goal is to improve it. Um, and I think that it happens twofold, right? At bare minimum, I think a lot of the sites that we work on when they come to Numa have quick wins on the conversion front. There are ways to get people to convert better. And I think one of the easiest ways to identify if you're in that bucket is try buying from yourself on your site. Truly. Or my favorite thing, and I've told our clients to do this, and it always gets a chuckle, but my mother, I love her to death, is not the greatest with technology. But things have to be super obvious to her because she just won't go hunt for it and find it. She's not going to like search for a page to do it. If I ever have conversion questions about a site that we're building, we used to build, or even the Numa site, I'll ask my mom to go, "Hey, do this site and take like the preferred action." If she can do it, great. That's probably easy enough. But 9 times out of 10, she can't do it. She has a question, or this load's too slow, or that button's too small, or I can't read that text. And is ornery and maybe even annoying, some people might say that strategy is, it is one of the easiest ways to find out where the holes are. And I often think businesses and business owners, especially, I've been at fault of this, and I think many others have as well, they set up a buying process that they want to go through or they think is really cool or efficient, but it's not how the buyer buys. And you want to make it as easy as possible for somebody to get onto your site and take that next step or preferred action. And I see a lot of sites that have a great, maybe not great, but cool funnel that gets people to that point, but it's so confusing and it just almost never helps. So I would say that's the first part, right? Set the expectation that the numbers don't have to be big for it to work, but your second question, right? It can take some time to figure out what the right offer is. Sometimes we'll switch. Sometimes we'll find different ways to get people onto the site. Maybe we'll move the button around. Those are all easy examples, but all things that play a role into it, right? Like maybe it was a form fill. Have we considered a Calendly booking just straight from the site instead? So, looking at what works for other sites and what works for other industries, especially looking into B2B or B2C, can always be a nice way for us to find some inspiration and find a successful conversion, I would say, on the site, or improving that conversion over the course of time. Um, Definitely going back to other campaigns or other websites is a great place to start.
Putting yourself in the shoes of your own customer and going through the process yourself, I think, is always good feedback and advice. We build and design things based on how it makes us feel, but without oftentimes thinking about the customer and the path that they would take. I guess, like, based on what I've heard from you there, is like, is do you think that before clients should even come and talk to an agency like Numa, they should go through that experience themselves? Or is should they lean on an agency to help guide them on, hey, this is how you should look at it, go through the experience yourself? Like, where should people be in the search economy, seeking help before them doing it themselves?
Yeah, I would almost say probably somewhere in the middle. Go do your homework and figure out what's working and what's not working. But before you make any wholesale changes, talk to the agency that's going to help you. Making sure that we're thinking through things strategically and making the right choice and the right move. Broadly speaking, I think the closer you can get to your customers, the more that you can get their insight, the better. Some of our best clients talk to their customers frequently about the types of things that they would check out against, what the offer is, what entices them more, and they come with that data whenever they come and work for us, and it makes our campaign that much better.
So let's hit SERP. What is SERP, and how do we think about SERP from a conversion perspective?
Yeah, so the SERP is the search engine results page. So when I go Google coffee shops near me, and you get the map pack, and you get a bunch of the different listings and the different websites that pop up, that's the search engine results page. Think of this as well, like the coffee shop analogy. If you're on that page, right, it's really only like being a customer in a coffee shop, or at least a prospect of a customer in a coffee shop. I haven't checked out yet. So getting someone to Google, and really not getting someone to Google, but having someone Google and seeing your website, getting an impression for that is one thing, but getting a click is a very different thing as well. Um, and I definitely think that's the other half of the conversion, right? Like if somebody Googles it, they can find me on Google, but they have to click to the site. Once they click to the site, they also need to actually check out and take a preferred conversion, which changes for company to company. But um, yeah, the SERP is ultimately just a congregation of all of the different results. And the fun job that we have is how do we make you stand out against all of the other results that are popping up?
Yeah, earning the click I think can be the challenge. Is there anything specific that you've seen that works over the years of ways that, people can overcome this challenge by having them themselves stand out? Like what are some of your tips or recommendations?
Shorter is always better, in my opinion, because it's easier to read. People are we have short attention spans. Everybody has a phone near us, which distracts us way too much, which likely means I'm not going to be willing to read a huge page title or a long page title or a long page meta. So I like to say short is typically better. The other thing that I've also found with a lot of our clients, and I can't say this for all industries, but our clients have customers that don't really respond to quote unquote clickbait, right? You don't need something fancy and exclamation points or emojis or like anything too crazy. Simple is better, more straightforward is better. Like, what am I going to get if I click on this page? Am I getting 20% off? Put 20% off if you click, and like make it simple, right? So there are definitely some SEO contingencies. You want to make sure that the keyword you're targeting is in page title, page meta, and like there's a relationship between what's best for conversion and what's best for SEO. And we have to find that happy medium. But being honest, being simple, being easy to click, and then just being enticing, right? Like why should I click amongst every other SERP on this page? And you know, each company, each client is going to have a unique way of doing that, or maybe a unique differentiator. But really, what it comes down to is if I'm searching for coffee shops in Denver, what am I really going for? Am I going for which one's going to have the best latte? Which one is the most famous, right? Like finding that differentiator and quote unquote standing out on the shelf like you would in a grocery store is really what you're going for with a page title and a page meta. I often tell people think of it like a miniature advertisement. That's the only interaction that somebody's going to have with your brand on Google. Make it clear, make it concise, and make it catchy enough. Don't go overboard where it's clickbait, but make it something that's going to grab my attention and at least entice me to click if I want to.
So we've gotten to this phase where we'll share some of the notes for what we're going to talk about here with other members of the team. And there was some energy around this next topic. And part of that energy came from a previous guest that you've heard from, and that's Jim Brown. Maybe you can share, David. Maybe it's how you think about it. I think it's how we all think about it. But just if we're out there and we're having conversations with new customers and the topic of conversion comes up, what do we consider a conversion? Because I think it can go in a lot of different directions, but how do you classify it?
Yeah, a conversion has to be something that you can attribute revenue to. And I'll dive into that, right? It shouldn't be something that's 9 clicks away from revenue. So, like an email newsletter, if you're selling a B2B service and your argument is, well, if somebody signs up for the newsletter, they're going to stay top of mind. And then when we email them, they might become a customer in 5 years. Sure, it can count as a conversion, but that's not what I want to focus on. I like to say things that are maybe 1 or 2 steps away from revenue. A form fill is a really easy example for like a B2B firm. If I fill out a form that's like an interest form, or if I book a call on someone's Calendly to chat with a B2B firm, to me, it's a really good example of a conversion, right? B2C might be a little bit different. If it's e-commerce, that's probably just buying the product, right? Maybe we'll track newsletter subs because that's a close second. But what we like to do is just find points of action that people take on a website that are directly attributed to revenue. If we can increase that metric and get more of those things and increase the conversion rate on that action, there is a proven track record that revenue is going to go up as well. And I think that's the biggest thing. We don't want to track just fun things, right? Like we don't want to track Conversion is if you visit the contact page is an easy example. Well, visiting doesn't do anything for us. We need them to actually click and convert. So really, we just want those conversions to attribute to cash, right? How closely can they connect, or how closely can they impact revenue? The closer, the better.
We've talked about putting yourselves in the shoes of your customer. When we're thinking about conversion, what are some of the ways that we can make sure that we have the intent of the person that is searching in mind when we're trying to drive conversion?
I think one of my favorite things to do here is that we all have a search term that we think represents our business. A lot of times it's correct, but sometimes it's not. And I think identifying with your client, like, hey, what did you search when you go and looked for us? Or I think better put, even if you searched what I thought you were going to search, why did you? What prompted you to search? If I'm searching for coffee shops in Denver, why I needed a place to work today because my power's out. Okay, well, maybe there's not much search criteria there, but like good to know, and good to know that's your intent. You wanted a place to work. Maybe there's something there in terms of a marketing angle. So again, it may be a cop out because I always lean on it, but talk to your customers, understand why they're searching, not just what they're searching. SEO professionals and firms all around get caught up on the keyword and not the intent or the motive behind the keyword. If you search, roofers in Denver, we've used this one before. Well, that just tells me what you're searching for. It doesn't tell me why, right? Is it because you had hail damage? Is it because you are at 10 years and you need a roof replacement and you're just searching roofers in Denver, right? Understanding the intent gives you the action or the pain point that somebody's up against to search for. And you can also market your company against those pain points on Google as well. So it gives you a unique opportunity. I think putting yourselves in the shoes of the searcher and really understanding the intent or the motive behind the search will give you far more understanding of what that person's looking for than just the basic keyword that they search. Both are important, but if you combine them, you get a lot more insight.
So you're in a phase where your traffic is increased, right? You're focused on the right keywords. There are people coming to your site, but when you look at your analytics and you look at your CRM or whatever you're tracking in, the conversions haven't changed. I think as a marketer, I think this maybe is an element where you start thinking about experimentation, changing things, testing. If you're in a mode of experimenting, what are the types of things on your site that you're tweaking, tinkering with to see if you might be able to create funnels and bring people in for people landing on your site who might not be, raising their hand to talk with you? What sort of things are you doing?
Yeah, I think the first question I would ask if you're coming to me with that of hey, I've done all this and I'm not seeing an increase. How long have you waited, right? Especially if you're in a B2B environment, as much as we want it to be make change, see impact, it's not. B2B buying process, or maybe even the sales process, is a little bit more complex, but right, just because someone's reached out, maybe it takes 30 days for them to buy from you. They might have been looking at you for 90 days prior, right? So one quick change of a conversion doesn't always make a difference that same day. But the other thing I do, again, I go back and put yourselves in the customer's shoes. You try and check out, right? What's enticing, what's not enticing. But one of my favorite easy ways that I almost always seem to work is put the words of your customers, whether let it inspire the copy that you have or literally make it the copy. We had a pretty decent checkout, or not checkout page, but a conversion page, a landing page on the site to book in a call and chat with our team. The only real improvements that we've made since I would even think starting the firm has been adding social proof to the page, case studies, testimonials, things like that. And then every once in a while, we'll change the tagline to something that a customer said. So if we heard something from a customer's mouth and we're like, that makes a lot of sense, like that, I think it's going to resonate with a lot of other people, we'll update it, right? So in a weird way, a website also has to be a mirror to whatever your customer's thinking. Use your customer's language. Like we can spend a lot of time, energy, money hiring a copywriter to tell your story, and that's a very important part of the process. But make sure you have customers' tone and language and voice in there, because if a customer's thinking it and then they read it on your site, they're far more prone to check out or take that desired conversion, right? And honestly, I think that's where a lot of sites fall short. They have a page that's enticing to them and not enticing to their customers. And I think one of the easiest ways to eke out more value from your site and more conversions from your site is make the customer feel like this is exactly what they're looking for. Use the customer's voice, the tone, or maybe their literal words and case studies just to further show the social proof, but further convince somebody that you know what you're doing and that you really understand their pain point.
I'm going to ask you not to say put yourself in the shoes of your customers for this next question. Someone listening, thinking about SEO, thinking about conversion for the first time, what is the best recommendation that you have for them, like from a V1 perspective, just getting going?
Less clicks, the better. There's a great book that was recommended to me a while back called Waymish. Why are you making it so hard? And then the title goes on, for me to give you my money. And it stuck with me because I've had so many of these, what the book calls Waymishes at like a grocery store or a coffee shop. And it's like, man, I want to give you my money. Like, I want to buy your things, and you're making it so difficult for me to buy your things. I don't remember where I was the other week. My wife and I were out. Oh, I was going to buy a new pair of shoes, and it took a good 15 minutes for Finish Line to bring out the pair. I just left. Right? Why are you making it so hard for me to give you my money? I want to, and you're making it difficult. I say that, bring that to the digital world. The number one easiest thing that I think people can do is simplify down your calls to action. You should only have two on your site. You should have a direct call to action. A direct call to action is something that directly takes me to the point of conversion that I want. So on our site, it's this is in the language, but book a call, and it takes you to the book a call page. Simple, direct, one click. I'm there. I'm ready to book a call. The other one I call typically a transitionary or transitional call to action. Maybe this is view our case studies, and on the case studies page, it has a bunch of calls to action to book a call. It builds some social proof and gets me one step closer. That's it. You should really only have two calls to action on your site. You could be daring and only have one if you really wanted to make it clear that, like, hey, I only want you to book a call. That's what this site's purpose is for. You can peruse it, you can look at the case studies, but that's the only action, right? And when you're ready, book a call and we can chat. So I think condensing the way that people can almost talk to you and come interact with you is really good, especially in a B2B environment. I've been on a lot of sites where there are like 9 or 10 different actions, and it does the opposite. It's almost overwhelming for a customer to see that many actions and not know what to do. And they typically just leave the site. So that's the number one thing that everybody can do. And then I would say, two, on top of making it, I guess, simple, making it short, concise in terms of the clicks. But a lot of times I think people have the want to get a lot of information. And I hear this a lot, like, I'm going to make my form really long so I only get the highest quality leads. I think it's a terrible idea. I always have, because your high quality leads, what typically you mean is that you want them to have budget, you want them to be a successful business, and that's somebody you want to work with. Well, tell me the last time a decision maker at a successful business that has budget to spend wants to go through a 32 question onboarding form just to book a call. Let me put my name, my phone number, my email, and maybe a quick note down, and put the onus on your sales team or the people after the fact to really gather the rest of that information. If we were to put all of the questions we ask on a discovery call into a form, we would have no leads. We would lose out on great opportunities and great customers because we're making them jump through too many hoops. So long story short, simplify down your calls to action. Hidden in there, I'd make one of them book a call. If it is a person-to-person sales process, you have to talk to somebody before you buy. Make that upfront and obvious. Don't have anything too fancy. Just have them book a call with you. And then just make it easy for them to book a call. Put a Calendly up with a few questions, name, phone number, what concerns do you have, what's your biggest pain point, but don't make too many people jump through hoops, right? Take the Finish Line example and ultimately bring it into the digital world. Like, I walked in the Finish Line, I found the pair of shoes I wanted, I asked for a size. First off, it took me 10 minutes to find someone to even get my size. They came back, they said they didn't have the color. They went back again, disappeared for another 5 or 10. They came back, asked me another question. It's like, hey, I just wanted a 10 and a half in this. Just bring it out. Tell me the information when you actually give me some value as well. So I think those are the two biggest things. Keep it short and simple. If you're B2B, book a call. If you're B2C, make it really clear how people can buy from you, especially if it's e-commerce. I see that hidden far too much on sites. Like, there should be buy now buttons all over the place if that's your action. And I would say maybe this isn't customer shoes, but I'll at least throw it in there. Think of the last time you bought something, right? It's one of my favorite things to do with clients in the past, but I want this 19 question form. I'm like, that's awesome. When have you ever filled out a 19 question form? Or would you fill it out? And the answer is always like, of course not. Well, if you're not going to fill it out, don't ask your customers to do it as well. And it's one of my favorite things. When's the last time you purchased something? How do you purchase it? And what did you find good or bad about it? Use that as a learning lesson for how you set up your site to convert.
Is that as we close this out, so we're talking about conversion. Conversion is everything. Layering in maybe some social proof at the end of this. Is there any customer specific examples of just like going through conversion, the process, making some changes, making those changes for the better from anyone who you've worked with over the course of the years that are good examples to share as we end this?
Yeah, there's a lot that comes to mind. We worked with a couple staffing agencies in the past. One of them was Talent Foot. And they had a longer form. I think it was like 15, 20 questions of like a discovery form. It was a couple clicks deep on the site. It was hard to find. It was next to a contact page, so you weren't sure if you were supposed to use that. But then there was also a support page that was used for current clients to reach out and get support for open inquiries and things like that. It was a very complicated process, right? As a customer, I was going to go onto that site and not know where to click, or a prospect, I wouldn't know where to click. Streamlining that down into just one option, putting it in front of them and making it short and simple for them to just fill out the information, have somebody call them and find time to have a longer conversation was far more successful. And we were finding that there were a lot of good leads that just were confused or didn't have the patience to fill out something that long that moved on to somebody else that we captured for them. So again, don't make it so hard for your customer to buy from you, but simplification of offer, simplification of direction. In a weird way, I'll even say visitors on your site want to be directed into an offer. Don't give them the freedom, right? If they're Googling something, they're likely looking for speed. Help them solve their problem or get that process started as quickly as possible.
Hopefully, you learned a thing or two about conversion. Come join us next episode where we will be talking about outreach. David, talk to you soon.
Till next time.